Good morning. Welcome to Southminster Steinhauer United Church. We gather here on this Victoria Day long weekend, and we are grateful for this circle and for this day. You're welcome in this circle no matter who you are, no matter how your week has been, no matter whether you've been here many times or this is your first. You're welcome. This is a place to wonder, to question, to express our gratitude and grief, our joy and frustration, our hope and our fear. We do a lot of things together in this place, and it's a place mostly to be together in community. And so we're grateful for this opportunity, for the land on which we meet, the inheritance we share with our Treaty 6 brothers and sisters, our Métis friends, and all who call this their ancestral or adopted home. We move into this time together with wisdom, with experience. Each of us has that. And we bring that to who we are, and we bring that to this place and to this gathering. We come here also with the wisdom that we seek, be it in words or songs or prayers or silence, or to simply feel it deep within us. So we come to this place with openness to find a quiet center from which we will live, a quiet center from which we can participate in this next hour. We come here with each other to be. We're grateful for light. On a sunny morning like this, we're grateful. This light here in our center reminds us of that great big light at the center of our system, source of life and energy. It also reminds us of the light that shines in each of us, the light that we try to seek in each other's eyes, that shines in us, and when we see it, we can recognize a connection, a common humanity in and between us. We're grateful, too, that this candle reminds us to live lives that brighten in all we do, in all we say, that we might bring light to each other, to those we know, to those we don't know. And we are grateful for this light because it focuses us, and it draws us closer to all that's meaningful in life. May it remind us of that which we strive for, that which we work for in our days, all that is sacred, all that is imaginable. Let's focus our attention now with words. Right here, right now, we reside in the midst of strength, instilled and surrounded with love, in continuity with community, connected in our humanity. Each of us, distinct and individual, make up this unique community of people that can celebrate something larger because we're part of one another, committed to community. And so we use this time to pause, reflect, listen, learn, affirm, let go, laugh, forgive, all of us in our own way. In these moments together and within ourselves, there is space that needs tending. May we come to terms with those places. May we face them and not turn our backs on them. All the while, we'll celebrate and place before us our value for life and love, celebrating our belonging, allowing ourselves perspective and grace. Right here and right now, there is nothing else. May it be so. It's our time for all ages. I welcome anyone to come join me at the carpet. Tall or small, you're just in time for carpet time. When I'm all by myself, I can do whatever I want. Maybe when you're by yourself, you can do whatever you want. Let's see. I could eat whatever I want. I can watch TV, whatever show I want. What else? I get to go to bed whenever I want and get up whenever I want. I can do whatever I want when I'm by myself. But when I'm not alone, I can't always get what I want. How come? Why can't I do all those things, do whatever I pick all the time, even when I'm not alone? Even when my family's with me or my friends? How come I can't always do what I want and get what I want? How come? Oh, because my friends might want to do something they want to do. That's a good point. Or maybe my family doesn't think it's a good idea that I stay up till 3 in the morning and eat chips and chocolate and all the things that are bad for me, because they remind me sometimes. Yeah, other people have different likes, right? So if we all sit down in front of the TV as a family, how do we decide what to watch? Can't always get what I want. You can't always have what you want. When we're in a family, or when we're with our friends, or when we're with any group of people, we have to somehow get along when we all like different things. So what do we have to do? What do we have to do when we're with family, friends, other people? How do we make it work? let's see if we could ask everyone here for some ideas. How do we make it work? Oh, compromise. That's a big word. Teresa, what does that mean?
That means each gives a little, I guess we could do a poll.
Oh.
Decide amongst ourselves.
We could ask everyone what they liked or what they wanted, and then we could decide somehow. What are some other ideas? How do we do this? Oh, that's another big word, accommodation. Fabian, go for it. What does that mean to you? Okay. Oh, we have to get along. That's so true. Here's an idea. We could take turns. Fantastic idea. It's better than big words. Oops, I didn't say that out loud. Any other ideas? So taking turns is another great idea. What are other ways that we can do this? When we're with other people, we can't always have our way. What do? Oh, we listen more. Oh, that's a good idea. Because when I always want my way, I'm probably always talking. I'm probably always saying, but let's do this, but let's do that, but let's do this. But if I listen, that's a good idea. Oh, I didn't quite hear that, Jill. Oh, that's very interesting. So what Gilda means, she said ask to be recorded as being opposed. What she means is that if you don't agree, you could just say, well, that's okay, but I don't agree.
Do you serve on a Congo board?
Is there one or two other ideas, very practical ways? There's one back there. Arv? Take a vote. It's a good way. Ian? What's that? You do as you're told, you mean? This is a man who's been married for a long, long time. He knows what he's talking about. Sometimes you have to do what you're told. Oh, you could do something random. You could draw straws, or you could pick something out of a hat, and whatever idea comes out, that's what we do, right? That's also a good idea. Teresa's dying to share one more thing. Pass the remote around the room. What a good idea. Oh, that works sometimes, David says. Not always. So these are great ideas. So getting along and sharing ideas is harder than just always getting what we want, getting what I want. Getting along is harder. But it's also what makes our lives better, because we can live together much more happily when everyone gets a little bit of what they want, rather than one person getting everything and no one else. So that's our job for all of life. I wish those answers were easy, but we work our whole lives at doing that, at getting along and sharing and listening and passing the remote around and other things around. It's also one of the wonderful things that builds community with each other. So as a way to finish here, we're going to share a prayer. This is a prayer, not too many big words, maybe a few. But we're going to share this with each other, and I wondered if those who wanted to, that are sitting on the carpet, could say a line, and then everyone in the room could repeat that line. So I'm going to go first, and you can see what I mean. And then I'll pass the mic, and you can do it if you want, and if you don't, that's okay. Just pass the mic to the next person. So this is how we'll do it. As I live every day, I want to be a channel for peace. Every day, I want to be a channel for peace.
May I bring love where there is hatred.
May I bring love where there is hatred,
and healing where there is hurt,
and healing where there is hurt,
joy where there is sadness,
joy where there is sadness,
and hope where there is fear.
and hope for where there is fear.
I pray that I may always try to understand
Pray that I may always try to understand and comfort other people,
that I may also seek comfort and understanding from them.
that I may also seek comfort and understanding from them.
wherever possible, may I choose to be a light in the darkness,
Wherever possible, may I choose to be a light in the darkness,
A help in times of need,
a help in times of need,
and a caring, honest friend.
and a caring, honest friend. And may justice, kindness, and peace flow through my heart forever. And may justice, kindness, and peace flow through my heart forever. Amen. Thank you, everyone. Let's be going to Kid Spirit. To show by touch
From James. Dear friends, do you think you'll get anywhere if you learn all the right words but never do anything? Does merely talking about lofty principles indicate that a person really has them? For instance, you come across an old friend dressed in rags and half-starved, and you say, "Good morning, friend. Be grateful. Be filled with the Spirit." And you walk off without providing so much as a coat or a cup of soup. Where does that get you? Isn't it obvious that talk without action is outrageous nonsense? You can no more show me your action apart from your ethics than I can show you my ethics apart from my actions. Words and works. Works and words fit together hand in glove. These are words we inherit from the Christian tradition of the early 2nd century.
These words come from John Herman Randall Jr. from a piece entitled On the Importance of Being Unprincipled, written in the American Scholar, Volume 7, spring of 1938. A group, let's say a committee, means to tackle a problem. Each member begins by laying down his or her principles, how it shapes up for them, their particular slant on it. This takes a lot of talking. Then, if the members possess some political intelligence, they stop talking about principles and get down to the real business of working out a compromise measure which will meet the major objections and do something to satisfy the most insistent demands. If the members of this committee are not politically intelligent, they will naturally keep on talking about principles a lot longer. Each will try to convert the other to his or her own. That will probably result in a deadlock and nothing will be accomplished. If something simply has to be done, there are two chief ways out. Either the talk will go on until everyone manages to understand each other's principles and there's general agreement that each is right from his or her own point of view. The committee will then be able to compromise on a plan. Or somebody will propose a new principle, more general than those previously argued for. So general, in fact, that each can accept it with his or her own private interpretation, and then they will get down to business. In either case, the committee will never begin to get anywhere till the principles have been removed from the discussion one way or another. The easiest way of dealing with such principled people is to agree immediately to all their principles. It is, in fact, the only way to get a person with no political sense whatsoever to compromise. Usually after everybody has grown tired of talking of their principles, or rather, after everybody has grown tired of hearing others talk about theirs, for no one ever wearies of expanding on their own. And it is clear that the discussion is getting nowhere. Somebody will remark, now that we're all agreed in principle, and then the real work begins. These are words of an American writer and philosopher. We always find wisdom for our living. I read the headlines yesterday, and one of the top stories was fentanyl overdose rates in Alberta. Opioid addictions and the Alberta Health Report says that there's a 61% increase in deaths in 2017 over this time last year. Naloxone kits that can save lives in an overdose situation are more readily available. First responders now have them, are trained to use them. Take-home kits are available in many places free of charge, but as the report indicated, this is just a start. Intervention of pharmacists, street liaison workers, teachers, friends, parents, and grandparents are all required if these statistics are going to change. In other words, it's a community effort. It was perhaps a strange choice to choose this reading around being unprincipled. It perhaps goes contrary to almost everything we say in a place like this, to where we live according to our values. However, I think what Randall is getting at is our rigidity. Imagine for a minute if we were to tackle the fentanyl crisis only with our principles that drugs are bad and need to be eliminated. If that were our only guiding principle or factor, what would change? Would we eliminate this kind of drug entirely from our medical system and ignore the pleas of patients who do find opioid drugs helpful under doctor's care for short-term pain relief? What would be our conversation on naloxone kits? Would we even want to acknowledge that they should be available? Because our principle would somehow be challenged that we're endorsing the use of these drugs. And what would happen to the new laws that protect someone who's called 911 from drug charges? Because they'll be more likely to call and save a life if they're not scared that they're going to be arrested at the same time. Would we go there if we were acting on principle alone? Principles are tricky things. They can guide our living and our decisions in positive directions, and they can also get in our way of making progress, of taking action, doing the right thing. And I think that was Randall's point. Here's another example. I've never really understood the Christian right. In story and experience, it seems like there's more concern with being right and true to their religious beliefs than intending to the action that will show mercy and compassion, or to get at the root of the problems at hand. We could choose any social issue: abortion, LGBTQ inclusion, even still divorce. We could choose any social issue, and there are scripture quotations rallying against the will of God, etc., etc. These principles of the Bible only and at all costs, standing on what some would perceive as the white side of a very black and white issue. It could be argued that this principled stand does not confront the problem. It attacks the problem. It says there's no solution other than banning a practice or healing the sinner or separating oneself from the cause of all of it, living in seclusion. None of these solves the problem facing society. Now, it was baffling to me why this has continued in those circles, even in 2017. What has helped me to understand, maybe I still don't understand, but what has helped me along the way is Martin Luther. I know that sounds weird. Martin Luther is one of the 15th century reformers of the church. I mean, that's 500 years ago, right? What he did and what he said and what he wrote had lasting impacts on the last 500 years of the church. Martin Luther had a hang-up. We all have hang-ups. He had one principle for which he spilled a lot of ink over. He was convinced that nobody had to earn their way into heaven. He was dead sure that the grace of God, and this is language that we might not use today here, but this is language that he would be using, or in a 15th century kind of way. He was dead sure that the grace of God is what would save humanity, and that there's nothing we can do to deserve it. to earn it, to make it happen. You could be the best person in the world, but if God hasn't chosen to save you and to bestow that grace upon you, then there's nothing you can do to change that, to earn it. It was all down for Martin Luther to the divine generosity and grace that was bestowed on us. So then Martin Luther reads the book of James, from which we heard a slice of this morning. It's a reading about works and words, faith and action going together. You can't have one without the other. And he hated it. He hated it. He wanted that book out of the Bible. It didn't fit his principle of what God was like and how God acted. It didn't make sense. He thought it was all wrong. He thought it didn't matter what you did. So why all this emphasis on what you do, on the acts of your faith? Why this emphasis on getting down to work? For him, it was about believing, relying on God to treat you with grace and mercy. And he wanted nothing to do with anything that might seem like you could, by your actions, buy your way into the good books. So he reads in this letter of James the importance of faith and works, of works and actions, and he couldn't reconcile it on principle. He couldn't make it work. Now, fast forward 500 years, and some communities are still taking that and taking it to the extreme. Some rely on that very Protestant reforming kind of ideal and principle, and stress that faith or even belief or orthodoxy over actions, because it doesn't fit the way they think God ought to work, or should work, or does work. So there's no need to emphasize feeding the hungry, or clothing the poor, or helping alleviate our social problems, because it will all be taken care of. There's no need to worry about that, because if you live a good life, if you're worried about how you're living and perhaps encouraging others to live the same way, God will take care of it. This is the result of being overly principled. It doesn't excuse the behavior, but it helps me to explain it. Does that mean that we who don't really care about the words of faith, the beliefs, the orthodoxy, but just would rather go and sign up and help some people, does that mean we have fewer principles? I actually think it just might. Or perhaps, to be clearer, a few less rigid principles. It's this idea between action and principle that I find very compelling. As we heard in our reading, John Herman Randall, writing 80 or so years ago, he talks about political intelligence. That if you're not particularly politically intelligent, you're going to talk about principles for a long, long time and never get down to any work, or never get down to compromise. And, two ideas come out of this reading for me. Randall uses this phrase, political intelligence, and I find it illuminating. In my experience, there's a prevailing negative about that connotation of the word political. It's no wonder, really, that we equate that word political with the nastiest of news that we hear about our systems and our politicians. We equate it with accusations and breaches of trust and backroom deals and lack of accountability and whatever the heck other things we're hearing every day from south of the border. But let's not confuse politics with politicians. Fundamentally, politics is how we engage other people. It's how we make collective decisions. It's the bringing together of multiple people in order to maintain a civilized polis. That's where the word politics come from. Polis means the city or the state. The question about being politically intelligent refers then to our ability and our agility to engage others. So the other matter then is what place we give compromise in all of that, in how we engage others. We sometimes hear stories of men and women who were unwilling to compromise. And that's a great virtue when it comes to a personal struggle, when it comes to individual challenges, one's own goals and dreams. In this case, being unwilling to compromise is an asset to accomplishing all of that greatness. Our personal ethics, our very integrity, the things around which we build our lives as a good person, those we shouldn't compromise to be the humans we want to be. But as soon, just like we talked on the carpet, as soon as there's more than one person, we enter into the world of political intelligence. And that's a realm where being unwilling to compromise moves from an asset to a liability. As a case study, one could look at the significant decisions that have been made by the United Church of Canada over the years. In the struggle to bring 4 denominations together in 1925, if those representatives of 4 very different denominations came with a principled approach and were unwilling to compromise, we wouldn't be the United Church of Canada. In the struggle to decide to ordain women, in the decision to ordain all members of the church, gay or straight, the church is now deciding through voting in every congregation whether to radically change the structure of our United Church, because it's been structured the same since 1925. And our numbers and our money and our situation is entirely different than it was in 1925. Are any of the changes that are going to happen or that have happened in our United Church perfect? Certainly not. Got a friend on the table. It might as well have been a squirrel. I got distracted there. Right. None of those decisions were perfect, but consider this. None of those decisions was or is easy, and none happen only by standing on principle. If it did, they wouldn't have happened. Because just as many held opposing principles. Changes that affect groups of people have always transpired because there was time to move beyond principles in order to take action one way or the other. To say, we've talked about this for long enough, we need to move on it. How are we going to do that? What are we willing to give? What are we willing to take? Every big change in organizations, in families, in governments, in societies happen because we collectively decide that we can put some things aside in order to move forward. To move somewhere beyond where we are, all of us are required to deal with what's negotiable. This is Randall again. When you don't need to solve the problem, you can stick to your principles and refuse all traffic with compromise. Either because you don't want to act at all, or because you don't have to and prefer to be free to criticize, or else because you want to fight. Principles are perfectly grand for fighting. You can't really fight well without them. At least you can't fight very long without acquiring a set. For a principle is by definition a postulate, an assumption. It's an idea that can't be proved by anything else, or it wouldn't be a principle. It'd be a fact. nor can it be verified by an experience different from your own. Since you can't therefore prove it if it is questioned, you can only support it by fighting. To make an appeal to principle leads to a fight that's intended to lead to a fight. When the fight is over and the principle established, or when both parties have finally got tired of fighting for them, the problem still remains to be solved. End quote. All of this is to say that we all in our lives have issues that are crucial to our engagement in the world. We live out some of these here in this place, in our communities where we live, in our workplaces, in our households. We all have projects. We all have issues that are important to us. We all have problems to solve. So, let's not compromise our personal integrity. Let's always commit to being the best people with the highest values possible. But my hope is that we're not always going to let standing on principle stand in the way of getting things done, of making change in the world, in our community, and the give and take that's required to do that. Which, like getting along, is much more difficult. And we can reflect on which are which. What's our personal integrity and which are our principles that we hold awfully rigidly? Are our values the kind that we shall be uncompromising and principled in our own decision-making and living? Or when action is needed, instead of criticism and fighting, might we be better off to be a little less principled? Only each of us will have the answers to that question. And may we all, in our own way, work to make it so, in so many ways. We have great privilege in sharing a time of commissioning with Nell. As a spiritual community, we're honored to commission and send Nell for service on behalf of the United Church of Canada. Nell Owens has been selected to serve with 9 other ministry personnel to deepen understanding of mission and service partnership and relationship in the Palestine-Israel context. She's been invited to learn about, observe, and reflect on key issues in Palestine and Israel, including the causes and impacts and alleviation of conflict, the occupation, including Christian Zionism, justice-seeking and advocacy efforts by mission and service partners in that region, and others around the world. So Nell will travel to engage in and with this endeavor starting on June 1st to the 10th. So we're going to ask some things of Nell, and then Nell is going to ask some things of us. So Nell, we celebrate your willingness to participate in this work on behalf of the church. On these travels and with this work and learning, will you seek to live with an open heart, open to the spirit of life that's within you and beyond you, open to the wounds and joys of all you will meet and encounter?
I will.
Will you be a faithful witness to the experiences of those you meet during this time, sharing their stories on your return home?
I will.
Will you accept the support and encouragement of this, your spiritual community, and the colleagues with whom you will explore during this time? Community of Southminster Steinhauer United Church. We are an expression of spiritual community within a wide and diverse context, with many understandings and various expressions of Christianity around the world. We're part of a worldwide community with gifts that are diverse, seeking to live in step with the vision and values we've learned from the life of Jesus of Nazareth. In this commissioning of now, our gifts and our unique expressions and our love for the world, our desires for peace, they travel with Nell to take root in new places. So will you, Nell's spiritual community, promise to support and encourage Nell as she undertakes this work? If it's so, answer and say, "We will." Will you commit to remember her in your prayerful thoughts and best intentions during this time? Will you welcome her home in openness and opportunity to hear her witness and share in her experience as she returns to us? So Nell, may all of our peace and support strengthen you and enable you to stand with those with whom you work together through nonviolent action and advocacy and learning. May you listen, may you learn, may you meet situations and people that change and help you evolve in your spirit. May the love and support of everyone here in this community go with you until you return. In the spirit of making not only our words but our actions mean something, in the spirit of getting along, in the spirit of making our communities a place where difference comes together, where listening can happen, where compromise can be a given, where the good of all is sought. May we go with that spirit of light, the spirit of our values, and the spirit of our principles that we hold very lightly, that we might go to make the world a better place. In the spirit of life and light we go.